As Persia was coming to invade Greece, fight for power jeopardized Greece's chances of resisting. Uh, because I've said this many times in my previous videos that Greek city-states were not, while they shared language and culture and all that, they were not the same. They were not homogeneous. Like every city-state had its own things going on, and often these city-states were fighting amongst each other. And I mentioned in my previous video that once they heard that Xerxes was coming, they moved very fast to try to settle disputes that existed between them so that they can bring together their forces and then resist the Persians. But that was not smooth, and it didn't really happen like in an ideal way. Like there was a lot of push and pull, especially regarding who will be in charge of the combined forces. And then there were others who were not so sure whether they should join that force and resist the Persians because they were not sure that Greeks were going to defeat Xerxes. So there was that. So after in particular, Athens and Sparta were kind of like the city-states that were leading the others in forming a coalition so that they will face Xerxes. And Sparta and Athens sent out ambassadors to these other city-states to try to persuade them to join them so that they can face the Persians. So let me go through a few of the issues that these ambassadors ran into as they were trying to persuade these other city-states to join them. And I need to point out that some of the city-states or the kingdoms they went to seek alliance from were not really Greek. They were just others that were neighboring them because they were telling them, yes, the Persians are coming to punish the Greeks, but they are also coming to grab power. And indeed, that was what it was. Xerxes himself had said that he wanted the Persians to conquer Europe. So using that threat, the Greeks were trying to persuade others who were not Greeks to join them, and also to bring together all the Greeks into one alliance. So an example of something that went wrong when the Greeks, especially the Spartans and the Athenians, were trying to seek for an alliance from someone it happens in Argos. Argos was a city-state, and it was a dominant city-state. And the Greeks, the Spartans in particular, sent ambassadors. I think it was Spartans and Athenians. They sent ambassadors to Argos, and they told the king of Argos. Herodotus tells us that it was not really the king himself, but a council. I guess it's a council like a parliament or something like that. They told them that they had come to seek their support to resist the Persians, and the council listened to them, and they told them, yes, we are willing to join you, but on one condition. We want you, in particular the Spartans, because the Spartans seemed like they were the ones who had already established themselves as the leaders of the alliance, to allow our king to have like half of the say, like to be a co-leader of the war on the side of the Greeks. So that was their condition. Like, we want you to let our king have a 50% leadership of the combined force. The Spartan, listening to that, they were not comfortable, and they told them, you know, in Sparta we have two kings, and we don't think it will be fair for those two kings to share, to take 50 and then your king takes the other 50. It won't be fair. So, but we are willing to say that your king will have one vote like the other two kings. Our kings each has one vote. So he will have a say, but we can say that maybe it's a third, but not 50%. The people of Argos said, no, we are not interested, and they told them, just leave. Now, Herodotus tells us that it seems like the people of Argos did not say no because they were not allowed that their king was going to have a say in the combined force. He says that there was other reasons why. In particular, there was a rumor that the Persians had reached out to the people of Argos and persuaded them to stay out of the war. And in fact, Herodotus tells us that the Persians were descendants of people who left Argos, which I found to be interesting. I don't know whether that was really accurate, but that's what Herodotus tells us. He tells us that the Persians were descendants of people who left Argos. And so the Persians came and told the people of Argos, we are your children, and we don't want you to get involved, to join the Greeks. Just keep off the war and let us do what we want to do. So Herodotus tells us that that was the reason. He also tells us that there is another possibility that he found out, or he came across another explanation, that it's the people of Argos, in fact, who invited Xerxes to come and attack the Greeks. So that's another explanation he got. And the reason why the people of Argos wanted the Persians to come and attack Greeks is because the people of Argos had been fighting for a while with the Spartans, and the Spartans were like almost defeating them. So they thought, if the Persians come and crush the Spartans for us, that will be great. Anyway, so people of Argos said no, and the ambassadors left. So another city-states where the Spartans and the Athenians in particular send ambassadors to seek for an alliance is Syracuse. Now, in Syracuse, the king there was a guy known as Gilo. Now they go to Gilo and they tell him, we want your support, we want you to join us in an alliance so that we resist the Persians. And Gilo tells them, I am willing, but I want you people to accept that I'm going to be the chief captain or commander of the joint forces. Like, it's also almost a similar demand that the people of Argos were asking. But in fact, the people of Argos were just asking 50%. Gilo was asking for 100%. He be the commander, like the topmost general of the combined forces. And the Spartans and the Athenians told him no, that's not possible. We Spartans have that position already. So we are just asking you to just join us. Then he told them, okay, if you are not willing to let me be the commander or the chief captain, how about you let me be the admiral of the fleet, the sea fleet? They also said no to him. And then they tell him, let me read what they tell him. King of the Syracusans, Greece sent us here to ask for an army, not a general. Like, we didn't come here to look for a general. We came here to look for an army. And he responded back and told them, Athenian stranger, you have, it seems, no lack of commanders, but you are likely to lack men to receive their orders, as you have resolved not to yield nothing and claim everything. You best make haste back to Greece. He told them, okay, if you don't want to let me be the chief captain or lead the sea fleet, then I'm not interested. You people go. So they left. Now, this Gilo guy was not so sure about his decision. It seems like Herodotus explains it. He wasn't so sure because he was seeing the war that was coming, and he was trying to think, what if the Greeks win? Then what happens? And what if Persians win? And it seems like him giving them this answer was just an excuse because he was not so sure about what was going to happen in the war. And he was worried that if he joined the Greeks, there was a possibility that the Persians will win and then Syracuse will be in trouble. So it seems like that's why he did it. In fact, when he heard that Xerxes had crossed over to Europe, he collected a lot of treasure and sent it to Delphi, like to the temple of Delphi, to have it kept there. And the people he sent, he gave them specific instructions. He told them, you stay there. If Persians win the war, you bring those treasures to Xerxes. Maybe to try to appease him and be like, oh, we are on your side, like we are paying you this, or we are giving you this treasure. And he also tells them, but if the Greeks win, then you bring back the treasure to Syracuse. So he gave those orders. So there was another city called Corcyra. These guys were they were like the kind of people you wouldn't want to deal with, because they they said to the Greeks, to the Athenians and the Spartans, once they were approached, they said, yeah, we are willing to join the alliance, and we are going to do everything that's possible to support this resistance. And the Spartans and the Athenians were confident, like, oh, these guys are joining us. But now, when the war started, these guys put together an army, and then they left in ships. This army left in ships. Instead of going to the war, they went somewhere and just stayed somewhere, and they were just watching to see what happens. And they were hoping that they were watching how the war will turn out, and they had plans that if Persians win, they were to go to Xerxes and tell him, you see, we did not fight you because we were not interested in fighting you, so that they could be in his good books, I guess. But they also had a plan if the Greeks won, and they wanted to tell them that we were ready and we were coming, but the winds would not let our ships come. In fact, that was the excuse they finally used, that they were coming, but the wind was so strong, it was going opposite the direction they were going, and the ships could not move, and now they couldn't make it to the battle. So then there are others who are very honest, like the people of Thessaly, the Thessalonians. The Thessalonians were very honest to the Spartans and the Athenians. They told them, you know what, we are fearful. We don't want to join you because we don't know how the war will turn out, and we fear that if we join you and then Xerxes wins, then we are in trouble. So we'd rather stay out of the war. But they didn't really stay out of the war, because in the end they joined Xerxes' side. Yeah, so you can see the Greeks and their neighbors, you can say the Europeans, had a lot of problems trying to form an alliance that would resist Xerxes, because of, mostly it was fear, that they were not so sure, because Xerxes was coming with a big army. I've told you in a previous video, 1.7 million men. And these city-states were small, and most of them knew that they could not resist Xerxes. And they even knew that even a combined force of all Greeks and other Europeans who were their neighbors, they saw it not possible. That they thought the chances of beating Xerxes were very slim. So that's why they were hesitant. Anyways, the Spartans and Athenians and others did go to the war, and I'm going to tell you what happens in a video that is going to come.